cut off my family when golden child sister kept them from my graduation. However, they contacted me after my dad died and his last request was to help my jobless sister. After 10 years of silence, my family contacted me 10 days ago. I'm 21 and 31F. I left my family soon after college, because of how they treated me compared to my sister. I have a twin sister named Rebecca. She's 12 minutes older than me, oddly. My family has always treated her better than me. Her family has always considered her the golden kid. Why has my family always preferred her over me, even though I've accomplished more? I was always superior. At school, sports, and even her specialties like art. As a child, I tried to outdo her at everything to make my parents like me more. It probably made them dislike me more, since it seemed like I was trying to put my sister down. Really, it wasn't. I wanted them to show me the same love and affection Rebecca received, but never me. They always supported her, enrolled her in programs she wanted, and bought her whatever she wanted. She had my parents bound all her life. My experience was different. Every time I asked for something, I was advised to behave entitled and spoilt, and she even said she wanted to take a year of college, which evolved into 3. She never attended college, thus she has no degree. I got into a good business school since I had high marks and required my parents' money for college. They informed me I would have to take out a student loan and pay it off myself because they didn't think they needed to sponsor me after 18. I was wounded, but I needed the cash, so I didn't say anything. I accepted my fate since they would never love me as much as Rebecca. I rarely saw them in college and only came home for holidays. After high school, I emotionally withdrew myself from my parents to avoid being harmed again, so I rarely talked to them. I invited them to my graduation ceremony but never heard back. Before visiting them, I tried contacting and messaging them, but they hadn't reacted to any of it. I assumed they didn't want to go. After the ceremony, I learned from a couple of relatives that they couldn't come because my graduation ceremony occurred on my sister's first day of art school. They couldn't leave her alone on her 21st birthday since it was more essential than my graduation. It was crazy because she wasn't attending a renowned school. Only 30 minutes from our house, she was taking painting lessons at the community college. On that day, I discovered that they didn't care about me and would rather I don't contact them again. The message was always clear. But that day I determined I didn't need to pretend I had a family to soothe myself. Not having a family was probably better than this. I stopped talking to my parents, blocked them everywhere, and was done. I did the same for my sister Rebecca, because we never got along. Even though I had plenty of proof to the contrary, she always thought she was better than me because of my parents' love and care. I suppose she knew I was better than her in every manner, therefore she was insecure and continually pushed me down. The joke is on her because I'm much better off than she is. She was arrogant and smug about everything, so we never got along, and I didn't regret blocking her and shutting them out of my life. After that, I felt financially vulnerable and had to pay off my student loans, so I took the first job offer. Since then, I've worked to establish myself and show everyone I can survive without my parents. At first, things were hard, but I had a lot of wonderful college and school friends who supported me, and today I'm financially and mentally stable. I've been working in a vegan products firm for 5 years and am considering launching my own. Despite not being vegan, I've been studying the vegan lifestyle for years. I think it's a large market. I've been thinking about launching a business for a few months and have spoken to a few folks who want to help. My aim was to start working on my company model and plan everything in the coming months. After getting 2 investors, I would quit my work and start my own business. However, last week my family informed me that my father was dying and I had to visit him. I was astonished that my relatives reached out after 10 years. When I learnt my father had been fighting cancer for 3 years, I abandoned everything and went home. He was too sick to return, therefore it was too late. They invited me to visit him one last time, possibly to make amends or chat about my sister. In the hospital, I almost broke down since I had never seen my dad like that and my mother held me, which was awful. I had forgotten everything and was worried about my father for a time. Wondered whether he would survive. Rebecca was present, but she didn't try to talk to me. She sat in the corner after making a face. My mom spoke to me and told her about my father the whole time, but she was the only one who pretended I wasn't there, which I found frustrating, so I didn't talk to her. Anyway, I don't like her and don't care what she's doing, so I believed it was fine for us to talk, and nobody else in the family appeared to worry because they understood my connection with them. My father died a week and 2 days earlier. It didn't take long for my mother and sister to prepare the funeral since everyone knew he wouldn't make it. I returned home, but I was forced to do something I didn't want to before my father died. Rebecca went home the second day of my stay because she was fatigued. Only my parents and I were in the hospital room when they started talking about my work. Since my father was dying, I believed it was harmless. I didn't think they were doing anything wrong, I told them I had been performing well at a successful company for 2 years. After listening and congratulating me, they told me how awful Rebecca was. They claimed she returned to community college after dropping out for 2 months. She had no degree and poor grades in school. She couldn't explain the gap, and she didn't go to college until she was 25. After my parents pressured her to seek a job, she did, but she only lasted 3 to 4 months. After a few months, she would come home and tell our parents that she had quit the job because it was too much, and they weren't paying her enough, which didn't make sense because they were paying her the proper amount. Because she didn't have a degree, she worked low-paying jobs and didn't want to work hard to advance. None of it made sense, and they had been fighting Rebecca to make her independent and explained to her that her arguments would not hold in the real world, but she didn't seem to care about the future. She was casual about everything. She ignored my parents' attempts to talk to her about it, and 6 months ago, she quit her final job and was sitting at home doing nothing. They told me they were worried about her and wanted me to watch out for her after my father died. My mother was too old and 1 year away from retiring, and she couldn't bring herself to keep working to support her daughter, who should be able to support herself by now. I had no idea how to reply to what they were saying, because my dad was suffering, and I didn't want to break his heart after so long. Because we had been apart for 10 years and I was feeling mixed. I told my parents I wanted to establish a business. It was not the ideal time for me to take on such a responsibility, because Rebecca was a liability and did not want to make money. She was fine living off others' money, and she had been doing so. Before this, my parents took care of her, especially my father because he made more money than my mother. My father now gave me the responsibility of protecting my sister. I understood why he wanted me to take on the duty, but I told them I couldn't at the time. I would invest all my money in quitting my work and creating my own business. However, my dad told me that they had already spent a lot of money on his healthcare and medical expenses, and he still wanted my mother to be comfortable. He knew I would protect Rebecca. He relied on me and coerced me into caring for Rebecca's future. He forced me to put my business ideas on hold until Rebecca was financially solid and promised to protect her until then. I didn't know how long it would take, but I said yes since I didn't want to disappoint a dying guy. Despite his past mistreatment, I was uncomfortable. I know that was stupid, but I don't think anyone in my position would have reacted differently. If someone had stood up to their parents in that situation, they might be strong, but I'm not, and I agreed to it. I was upset, but my father was dying soon, and I couldn't refuse his dying wish. They also told me what it involved, since Rebecca was in a relationship with a guy from school and was planning to visit him since he was working in another city but in the same state. I couldn't figure out why they couldn't visit more often, because it's not Rebecca, and Jared had a job and could come visit her. They were traveling far. I know the guy she was dating and his personality. I immediately knew she shouldn't be with him. That night, my parents told me Rebecca had been conversing to this guy online for 2 years. He returned to visit for 2 weeks during the holidays, but it was their only meeting. Jared doesn't have strong female ideals. He was known for flirting with every lady he could, and his high school girlfriends caught him cheating multiple times. I didn't follow up with him after we graduated, but 2 high school buddies told me he was divorced once for infidelity. I didn't know his problem, but I knew I couldn't trust him. I tried to explain this to my parents, but they said Rebecca seemed to like him, and they had seen them together during his visits home, so they thought they were meant to be together because they looked perfect and in love. I had a bad feeling about this because they were doing the long-distance thing, which gave up all kinds of ways for him to cheat without being detected since he was in another place. Rebecca had no idea. My parents told me they wanted me to pay for her flight tickets to go see him in the next couple of weeks, because they knew she would be weak, and only after our father died. And they wanted her to have someone since my mother would be too busy with illegal formalities and I would have to return to work. They wanted her partner to be by her side. I tried to describe the guy and warn them of the repercussions. They were sure Rebecca and Jared would marry and told me I had to handle these matters when my father died. I'd also have to pay for future weddings. They were very sure Jared was the best guy for Rebecca, and I couldn't convince them otherwise, so I just agreed because it seemed senseless to attempt to convince them otherwise. After my father died, I pulled Rebecca aside during the burial and told her about Jared and warned her of the repercussions. I had long known Jared's Casanova behavior and didn't like that she was involved with him. Like my parents, she ignored my warning and told me he had changed, and she knew it. She assured me they were in love and that he would never cheat or hurt her, so she didn't mind my warnings. She thanked me for caring about her but said she would merely appreciate the cash help, and that I did not have to be her father or have any emotional bond with her. That was cruel, and after that chat I decided to do what she requested. My father simply told me to help her financially. He didn't mention feeling. I opted to emotionally detach myself from my family because I had better things to accomplish and focus on work. A week has passed since I returned from the funeral. 2 days after the funeral, my mother ordered me to schedule Rebecca's airfare to visit Jared, which I did. After that, I was too busy working to check on everyone. Yesterday, an unexpected guest arrived at my door. Rebecca took the bus from Jared's city to mine since she was too embarrassed to phone me and didn't want to go home. After 10 hours, she arrived by bus since she could afford it. She arrived fatigued and crying. I was confused when I opened the door to her, but she started crying and assured me I was right about everything. She said she had planned to surprise Jared, so she arrived at his house unexpectedly. She arrived after he had been with another female at his residence. She quickly confronted him and asked who that was, but he instructed her to mind her own business. He said that they were not exclusive and he could do anything he wanted while he wasn't with her, so she couldn't ask him about his life here. That upset her because she had been together for 2 years and was considering marrying him. That stung, and they fought a lot in his hallway. She was so mad that she lifted her duffel bag and slapped him, but one of the chains caught him in the eyebrow, causing him to bleed profusely. She fled to the bus station and caught the first bus that brought her here after getting afraid. She requests my assistance. She told me she was ready to acquire independence and restore her life, and I needed to do it for her because I had been independent for almost 10 years. So she thought no one better could teach her my trade and give her a job. She informed me she heard I was starting a business and hoped I would offer her a chance to work there as a partner. I was overwhelmed, so before I could consent, I asked her if she knew whether Jared had filed charges against her. If he had, I didn't want anything to do with her. Her actions were reprehensible, regardless of Jared's. Even if she fled, she had no right to physically assault him, so she should be charged. She could still be found out and arrested by him. Since I was no longer going to clean up her mess, I avoided her. When I asked her about it, she informed me she hadn't escaped, he had charged her, and she had to pay a large fee as compensation, which is why she was here. To avoid getting entangled, I told her to go home and that I would not help her. She was furious and reminded me of the promise I made to my father before he died, but I told her it didn't matter anymore since I knew she was an idiot and would never do the right thing. I didn't want to clean up her trash since I wanted to start my own business, and she was a liability. I said the least I could do for her was buy her tickets home, but after that she was on her own, and I was going back to no communication with my family since this was too much. After 1 week, she had messed up horribly. If she had followed my advice and avoided that guy, none of this would have occurred. I was frustrated, so I told her I would book her travel tickets so she could go to the airport and wait there instead of wasting my time since I had a lot of work to catch up on. Since I'd booked the tickets, she took a cab to the airport a few minutes later. I thought that would be it, but my mother is furious at me. Since she wanted to clean up her life and get her act together, she thinks I should have been friendlier to my sister and made her a business partner. I turned down this chance to help because I was selfish. I don't think I was selfish, but my mother thinks so. Since I arranged her travel home, I think that was useful. Obviously now. She has to figure out a way to pay Jared's fine, but that's hardly my business since she was the one who hit him and visited him in spite of my mother's anger and constant calls and messages reminding me of my promise to my father and telling me I'm not keeping it. How about refusing to clean up my sister's mess despite a commitment I made to my father on his deathbed? Update 1. My sister visited me 3 days ago and I turned her away. After my mother kept attempting to reach me, I blocked her since it was bothering me. I don't owe anyone help. Yes, I promised my father. But honestly, I made that commitment under duress. Not something I wanted to do. I hope I explained that well. Even most of the comments said that it was manipulative of my parents to contact me only when my father was dying, and even then, it was clear that they wanted me to visit them so they could be sure I would help Rebecca later. He still got me to do something for the golden child before he left. I can't believe they just cared about her and me. Regardless of our relationship, he was my dad. I don't know how to feel about watching him die, but it hurt. I don't miss him. I don't miss him. Because I never got along with any of them, and haven't spoken to them in 10 years. I feel dissatisfied and let down. I was wrong to think we could change. I doubt my family could care about anything other than my sister. That'll never happen. I'll care about more things except my sister. No matter what, I'll create my own business. Nobody'll stop me. I'm not going to lose concentration again since it was bad for me. Update 2. Rebecca contacted me today. I probably forgot to block her. She texted me that she had paid the fee and no longer needed my help. She also told me my mother was disappointed and never wanted to see me again. I suppose that's great. I didn't want to see them again. They wanted me for my money, not my personality, and they would never regret how they treated me, and I knew. After reading the message, I blocked her without replying. I finished. Hey, update 3. I wanted to update you on my business venture after a few months. My company idea is nearly complete, and every investor I've spoken to has shown interest. I guess I'll quit my job and resign in a few days since I'm ready for the new chapter. I have no family contact again and things have never been better. I think not talking to him again was the wisest choice. This business will be my new family. I'm not sure I can do this again.